Guys, this is Dinosaur Drawer, and this is part 2 on how to draw the male velociraptor from the Jurassic Park 3. Alright, so the first thing we want to do right now is draw in this line, because he has a he has a white stripe going from his head all the way until his tail, till over here somewhere. So that's the first thing that we want to draw in, and we can't ever go over this line, and put it in very lightly, You want to erase everything that's going to be in his path, and again put it in very lightly. Alright, it goes over this part as well, so erase this. And later on you can put back a little bit of shadow. Then it goes all the way along his back, like this. And this is really the most important part about this whole drawing, I believe. Don't going over this line. Because if you accidentally go over it even once, you have to go over everything, and then the line won't be visible anymore. I mean, it still looks like a Jurassic Park 3 velociraptor, but yeah, you really need this line. And I believe it kind of disappears around here somewhere. So now do the same thing, but now on the bottom line. It's very thin on his neck. It gets a little bit thicker on the rest of his body, like over here, just a little bit thicker. And draw it in very lightly. Right, and you have to keep remembering that you can't go over this line. At least I need to keep thinking about it. And over here you need to be very precise, putting in the line. And it kind of disappears over there. So yeah, alright. Now what we want to do is get in his eye. His eye into place. I'm just going to draw in one black dot over here. And that will be it for his eye. It's too little to get more detail into his eye. And put a little bit of very dark kind of scaly lines around his eye, and also around this part as well, and start very dark immediately. You really want this to be very dark, and again, don't go over your line. Put in very tiny little scales on this eye ridge. Just put them in, and over here as well. Very dark, tiny little scales. Make a very thin line. It goes, well, I'll take my other mechanical pencil for this part. That goes from his mouth on this side and also on this side. put in tiny scales, just some lines. And also on top. And then darken in the line for his jawline. Needs to be very dark, and I'm gonna pick a piece of paper to lay my hand on, to rest my hand on, so I don't really smear the drawing too much. Alright. And yeah, just go very dark immediately. And put some wrinkles around the eye. Something like this, and leave some areas a little bit wide, a little bit lighter. And also put a bit of scales on this thing. And make it a little bit lighter on top, like this. And just put in a couple of lines over here. Alright, something like that. And put a lot of dark scales around his nose and stuff. And do the same thing with his bottom jaw. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna draw in some lines, and I'm gonna put some scales between them. You can try and do the same thing, but it's a little bit harder because it's very tiny. And later on you can just go over it at the shadow parts where you want to add more shadow, and put some shadow in your drawing where you want some. So I want this part to be a little bit darker, just a little bit, like this. And also I want this part to be very, very dark, so it's really clearly visible where all this structure, these structural lines are. And we could always go over this as well. Alright, so that's a really detailed head. Really, really detailed. I'm gonna switch to my other mechanical pencil again, because I was just using it to get really small details in. Alright, his neck has a lot of wrinkles. So how you want to draw a wrinkle is just draw something like a bump, and don't go over the white area yet. We can go over that later on, and it is going to look awesome later on, but not yet right now. So just draw a couple of these things, and they kind of go like this on the bottom. Alright, and over here they get, you can draw them in longer and longer. Alright, something like this. And now what you want to do is create some shadow between each one of these things. And also you can try and get some scales into it. I'll just use my finer mechanical pencil again. And I want to darken these lines a little. So I can get more detail in it. Alright, so this is probably going to be a 3 to 4 part tutorial, because this is going to be really detailed. And draw some shadow. You can try and get some scales into it. And it's probably going to look something like this. So what you want to do now is you want to get a little bit more detail into this area. So what I first want to do is darken it in a little. This part should be just as dark as the rest of his jaw. And then the shadow gets a little less. Still, I want to have a lot of shadow on this bottom section over here. And then get some lines that go like this. Just draw them in, a couple of lines. Something like that. And I want to erase this part just a little. Okay. Maybe this is a little bit too dark, by the way, so I'm just going over it a little. Something like that. And it's very hard to actually see the proper lines and stuff, so I'm gonna go over it with this one and make the bottom line a little darker. And do the same on the jawline, because this jawline needs to be very dark as well. And then do the same thing on his whole neck. And some lines that you want to be a little bit more pronounced, you can go over it and make them a little bit darker, like this one. Just a little bit darker. And the rest, don't bother too much with them. And you can just always put in those kind of lines that make for a little bit more detail. Alright, so now I want to put in these feathers, and the way I want to put in the feathers, let me get a piece of paper, is actually like this. So what you want to do, and I'm gonna try and use, if I can find one, a normal, okay, I'm just going to use my pen. So what you want to do is first draw the feathers in very lightly, like this. And he has some white dots on it. So what you want to do is draw it in very dark, then leave a part like this. And it should look something like that. And that will make for well, the white kind of dots on his feathers. So that's what I'm going to do right now, with a very fine mechanical pencil. And some only have one white line on it. Others have a lot more stripes and stuff. Okay, this should be fine. Now we want to get a little bit more shadow and stuff inside this white area. So just go over it very lightly to get those lines in, so that it doesn't look as flat. It still has to look kind of real and realistic. Alright, so now we're done with the neck and his whole head already. Now we want to darken in this part just a little, well, a lot actually, but first we want to darken in this. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to darken these lines until his hind leg, so I'll be back. Okay, so I'm back and I made them very dark. You want to have a lot of shadow over here. Very much shadow on this area, and then the shadow goes something like this. And if it's not dark enough, we will go over it later. Just make it very, very dark. Something that looks a little like this. And then this part is also very dark. So we're gonna make this part very dark as well. A lot of shadow over here. And again, don't forget this line. Don't forget it. So first we're going to draw in the shadow and then the small little details and stuff. So there's a lot of shadow over here. Make this very dark. And also this line goes something like this. And then something like this. And over here there's also going to be a lot of shadow. And I might have actually made this part a little too dark, but we can go over it with an eraser later, because we still have to get a little bit of detail in it. Alright. And I will try to make these videos for like about 30 minutes long, because this is going to be a very long tutorial. So it's better to make the videos a little bit longer than have for like 5 or 6 parts of it. I didn't really expect to get to make the drawing this detailed, but it turned out that it really started to look great when I put a little bit of detail in it, so I just kept going and I couldn't stop myself anymore, so here we are. Alright, this line goes like this, and then this line kind of goes like this. I just really keep going over it, adding a little bit more shadow to it at places that I believe there isn't enough shadow yet. Alright, so now I can start doing some detailed lines. There's a line going from all the way over here, something like this. Then there's another line. There are a lot of lines actually. There's one line going like this, right here. Another line over here that goes like this. And let's see. Make this a little bit darker. And there's another kind of strange line over there. And let's get a certain tone into this, because it's still a little bit too white right now. And don't go over this white area. Then over here there's supposed to be a stripe like this, and a very light one over there. And now I'm gonna take my other mechanical pencil again. Well, let's just first put a little bit more tone into this and stuff. And normally I don't do this, but maybe smear this a little. And over here as well a little bit, just a tiny little bit, so that it fades better into the drawing. And then you can make this part a little darker. Alright, and now try to draw in lines that kind of go like this. And then try to draw in lines that go something like this. Alright, that's just fine right now. And maybe put in little darker lines here and there. For example, over here. And over here as well. Okay. And now just do the same thing. But on his back. And let's go over his back a little bit with a darker line. So it's just kind of the same technique that I usually try to use. And just make these wrinkles very dark on the bottom side. Get a little bit of shadow into these wrinkles so they look real. Alright, let's get the muscle of his arm in. Something like this, and then this line goes on all the way until there. And then there's another line over here. Alright. And there's also a muscle line over here a little bit. Something like this. Then just go over it a little. Do the same thing over here. And also over here. Alright, I had to focus my camera a little bit. And yeah, just put those kind of strange scales into his fingers. Put them in very, very dark. And put some lines underneath over here. and put a couple of lines everywhere. And then we can go over it with pressing down a little bit harder. So you can see the clear forms of everything. Alright, and this video is already at about 31 minutes, so I'm gonna stop this video right here and I'll be making a third part. So I'll see you guys in the next part.